In the scholarly world, it can be intense and it can be combative, and it can get critical. And I really loved in the preface how you open with discussing the scholarly critical view that divides the epistles of Paul into two categories of disputed and undisputed epistles. So I love how you pull back the veil and give us readers a peek into the rigors of scholarship and the critical approach that upsets how most modern Christians, including myself, were taught to view the Bible. So you say, in terms of where I stand today in the Pauline corpus, I find myself experiencing a strong sense of suspicion about our tools and methods for labeling texts inauthentic or synonymous. I'm not fully confident, you say, that Paul wrote all 13 of the letters under his name in the New Testament, but I think it's going too far to discount certain New Testament texts and exclude them from the conversation. So Nijay, to this point that we just talked about, tell us about the work you did with Ephesians to get ready for this book and help my audience understand this aspect of inside scholarship of textual criticism and what can be the pitfalls or the blessings that come from this critical view of the text.
Yeah, this is important because this is something that a lot of people in church just don't know. Scholars are arguing about this. But there's a view going back hundreds of years that Paul didn't write some of the letters in the New Testament that have his name on them. So, for example, 1st and 2nd Timothy and Titus, Ephesians, Colossians, maybe 2nd Thessalonians. And so scholars are debating these issues. And there are letters that scholars virtually all agree on that Paul himself was responsible for: Romans, 1st, 2nd Corinthians, and Philippians, so forth. So why do scholars have this suspicion? Have you ever gotten like a social media message from someone you know, but they're not talking like they're normally talking? This happens to me every now and again on Facebook. I'll get a message from someone I know, and they'll say, "How are you?" and they'll do some pleasantries. Then they'll get into trying to sell me something, or they'll, and you just are kind of suspicious. You're like, okay, they have the face, they have the name, but they don't talk like the person. And this is kind of what's happening sometimes in Paul's letters, where he'll use some turns of phrases or he'll say some things, and scholars have their kind of sensitivities there, and they say, oh, this doesn't sound like something Paul would say. There's some debate over that. So, for example, in one text, I think it's maybe Titus, Normally Paul starts a letter, grace and peace. He says grace and peace and mercy. So he throws in the and mercy. And people find that unusual. Oh, why would he do that? A couple of letters he says at the end, by the way, I'm writing this with my own hand, so you know it's me. People think, oh, maybe that's not him pretending to be him. They have these sort of methods they use. And so for a long time, scholars in my world have divided the letters up into authentic, meaning Paul wrote them, and pseudonymous or disputed, meaning we don't think or we're not sure he wrote them. And the problem when it comes to writing a book like my love book, or I wrote a book on faith, is if I want to talk about Ephesians, we'll get to Ephesians in a second, the Academy will say you're not allowed to because we don't think that Paul wrote that, or we're suspicious. The problem in this case is that Ephesians is the most important text for understanding Paul's theology of love. And so I thought, okay, do I leave it out? That seems wrong. Do I put it in and risk, getting my book kind of rejected by the Academy? I didn't want to do that. So I put this preface in just to explain, I know scholars disagree about this. I'm not on the same page with the scholars who dismiss these texts. Jason, a lot of this is guesswork. We don't know Paul didn't write 2nd Thessalonians. We're guessing. And scholarly winds blow back and forth. Yeah. So scholars will say, oh, we're sure about this, Colossians, and now they're saying, okay, he probably did write it. The joke I like to give is Charlie Chaplin, according to legend, Charlie Chaplin entered a Charlie Chaplin lookalike contest and lost. and Bob Hope came in third. And the funny thing about that is, what's a judge thinking when they're looking at Charlie Chaplin? They're thinking either they don't really know what Charlie Chaplin looks like, or Charlie Chaplin didn't look like himself on that day. Yeah. And when it comes to Paul, maybe Paul's doing something a little different. He has a different co-writer. Sometimes he writes with Timothy, with Silas, maybe with Luke. He has different friends that he can kind of lean on. And then another factor is we know that Paul used a letter secretary, sometimes called an amanuensis, and this would be like a professional writer, maybe a little bit like a ghost writer today, where they support and help you make something sound more professional or appear more professional. And we know Paul did this because in Romans he refers to his letter secretary named Tertius.
Yeah.
So maybe he had a different letter secretary. There's all these different theories. I just felt like I needed to talk about this. I didn't want to bore readers that weren't that interested, so I put it in the preface for people like you, Jason, because I knew you appreciated some of that discussion.
Well, I did, and thank you so much for explaining that, because it's important for us, I think, people in the pew, to know that side of it, because then we get to approach the Bible on its own terms. And then also, I like your side of, and I heard this in there, there's a respect for the critical approach to scholarship, because it does glean a lot of great fruit for us, and there's so much that comes out of it. But at the same time, we can't let them throw the baby out with the bathwater. And I've seen this with a lot of scholars, and a lot of scholarship, I should say, that where you get so critical that they literally just criticize themselves out of understanding the Bible and being able to take the text at the authority that God gives it to us through its human authors and the Holy Spirit. So thank you for that. I think that's a beautiful response. We need your help. Ring Them Bells is a nonprofit organization where every dollar donated goes right back into the mission of spreading the good news and helping those in need. The main ministry of Ring Them Bells is serving those in need in the name of our King Jesus. Over the past year, we have fed over 2,000 meals, and next year, we want to double that. We can't do this without your support. Everything we create here and all of the food that we serve is free because it's paid for by generous viewers just like you. If you feel led to donate and join the mission with us here at Ring Them Bells, click the Give Butter link in the notes and comments of this video. If you can't support us financially, please continue to like and share the content, as this helps us so much with spreading the good news about what Jesus has done for our world.